Now, time for questions from you all. The people with microphones, I've got lots of hands up. And meanwhile, can I just see, please, what's coming through on Slido? It's always a great moment here. Oh, this is going to be hard to read. Right.
Questions.
Yes. Oh, behind me. Thank you. I've got the wrong glasses on. That's much better. Let's go for the first one. Will a pipeline to take sewage overflows and treated wastewater out past the Manukau Bar be looked at rather than continuing to pollute the Manukau harbour? Now, there's probably only one person on the panel who has any particular insight into that. John.
And we'll still be looking for him or her. So look, I can't speak to the specifics of the Healthy Waters team's work, but I could tell you this, is that we've started to fundamentally change how we think about wastewater. We've fundamentally changed how we think about stormwater. And I can't give a yes or no to that question, but I can say we need to not think about how to take the waste somewhere, but how to actually integrate it into the city fabric that we are, meaning stormwater doesn't get flushed out just like our toilets. It's actually used, it actually percolates, it serves a purpose, and we have the kind of green infrastructure in our city that not only takes care of that as a service, because it's invaluable and probably cheaper than doing it by mechanical means, it's actually a whole host of benefits to people, because those trees and those green places, just like Te Aonga, Oakley Creek, are great places to just sit next to and be. So I'd like to say that let's go further than that. Where do we take the problem and actually don't create the problem in the first place. Think about new creative and integrated ways of actually creating a benefit from the problem. No, we'll still have poop, I understand that, but...
Yeah, no, thank you. I think you got right to the heart of the issue. Piping it out beyond the Manukau Harbour Bar solves nothing because we're still degrading a different environment. So
you're taking it out of the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, thank you. We got great clarity on that one. So I'm going to the second one down. What level of risk has been determined as acceptable for Kauri? If there's anybody in the room who knows the answers to these questions, please do jump up and give us the answer. Is there anybody in the room who can give us a sort of a sense of that sort of calculation is on Kauri? We don't know what the risk is.
I think one of the issues is that the science isn't quite there for Kauri at the moment, and we know how it's spread and probably the rate of spread. And I think part of the strategy really is looking at trying to exclude dieback from particular areas and scaling that up and trying to look at the priorities for where we should be trying to exclude from while the science catches up on what we can do for Kauri in particular, but also for other plant pathogens. And I see another question on there that also important to remember that Kauri trees, their natural southern limit is the Waikato, so they don't occur countrywide, answering that question. But certainly it is a government issue in terms of its numerous councils, and Ministry for Primary Industries currently has supposedly a major role in that.
Thank you. There's a couple of other specific questions around this subject. The first one is about whether the council is going to take practical steps to make sure they keep mature, healthy Kauri trees standing. And the second one related to it is whether the council is really, really committed to maintaining the integrity of the rahui, the areas that are that they're trying to cordon off. Is there anybody in the audience who can... Yeah, thank you, Penny. That's Penny House, leader in the Council on Environment Things, and the answer is yes to both. Thank you. Let me jump down to the bottom of what I'm seeing on the screen here. What do the panel think of key priorities? What are the key priorities for reducing carbon emissions in Auckland?
Ooh, me, please. How long do you have, people? So look, I think just to keep it really tight here, as Mayor Goff said, 40% of our emissions actually come from transport. If we just kept it in that box, it'd be like, right, let's just figure out how to electrify transport. Now that's part of the solution, but it's actually not the whole part of the whole solution. Transport, as you might know, is linked to things like land use and how we plan our city. And so the very way we plan our current urban infrastructure, city, and future city is probably the biggest material thing to do for carbon emissions. So if we're going to plan future growth areas, if we're going to refurbish buildings, if we're going to build more transport choice, we have to do so thinking about climate change with every single decision. And that's actually something I believe the governing body put forward as a proposal in the council-controlled organization accountability policy, is actually to make sure that the CCOs deliver on climate change adaptation and mitigation. So I'd say transport and land use is a key place to focus. Now, there's a whole lot more that's connected to that. Imagine that it's not just an electric vehicle, but it's a mobile battery pack that can reduce peak load when you plug it into your house, and it's connected to a system that works to, you know, the way to make this an ecosystem of solutions is very easy. We just need to get on and do it.
Thanks. Any other takers on mitigation of emissions in the city? Okay. There's a question that I had earlier, but I'll bring in here because it comes back to that land use issue. Some 27% of soils in the Auckland region are of the highest quality, particularly for growing things, and yet we are still spreading out pretty rapidly. We're still a far less dense city than even Los Angeles. Do we have any confidence that the unitary plan is going to slow that down in any way, particularly with the housing minister who has his eye on rural, far south parts of the city?
I'll be looking to Penny to make sure that I go as close as I can between now and getting fired. So look, this is a complicated one because it's a conversation and a dance we've been doing with central government for a long time. I think it's a very positive one because we're learning quite a bit from it, and it's not a simple answer here. I think as the key champion really for the unitary plan, Councillor Hulse takes a huge amount of credit for the upzoning, the intensification, and the really hard decisions we had to make about making our city more dense, and at the same time making it more livable. And so it doesn't come with a let's just crowd more people in. It comes with how do we create the amenities like the urban infrastructure, the green infrastructure, the street trees, the transport choice that actually make that not just tolerable, but actually a lot of fun and enjoyable. So I think the unitary plan is one step in that direction. I think for us to believe that it got us all the way there is false. I think if we were going to copy other cities out there in the world that have said, we want to grow in population because we see the benefits, we want to that every single one of us in this room subsidize to the tune of roughly $110,000 a greenfield dwelling. Now, I don't really want to be spending my rates money subsidizing the infrastructure for the greenfield areas. That's not what I want my money spent on. So tell us that, please.
If I can just add on to what John said, it really is astounding that we are behind the world and the world's cities. And if you take somewhere like Singapore, you couldn't get something more dense than that in terms of human population density. And they, I guess, have a different regulation system than us, but they have a rule that you can only increase population density and add in more buildings at the same rate you add green space. And that makes developers have to get clever. And we're not doing that. We're just sticking things in houses and car parks in as fast as possible without using our Kiwi ingenuity or even overseas ingenuity. We're just doing fast and bad, in my opinion.
I'm not trying to trump you on that one. I'm using that in a lowercase t term. But in a sense, it's worse than that, because there is a couple of fabulous projects going ahead in Singapore at the moment, based on that very great principle, you cannot expand unless you match the green. So, and Becker, our wonderful firm of engineers just up in the old regional council building, are deeply involved in those projects. So we actually have that expertise. Up the road is the atrocity of this. Sorry, I'm not sure that's the right word. Right.
Can I just add a quick thing, Rod? I
Yeah.
know I've been taking a lot of time here, but there's a piece in Our Auckland from Penny today, and there's a piece from me yesterday about saying growth doesn't have to be all negative consequences. In fact, we can use growth as a catalyst to get better outcomes. And I think that point has been made by the panelists, but we've actually, that's in the Auckland plan, at least the proposal. So it'd be really nice to hear a response to that. If we're going to be growing as a city in population and GDP, how do we harness that growth to get better outcomes and not just hold the line on sustainability and make sure we get less bad, but actually make things better and restore environments and restore places that we all live? That's possible.
Thank you. Now, oh, sorry, yes, thank you. Thank you. Gentleman there with the... Oh, sorry, no, the lady's got the microphone. Thank you.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
that's great, thanks.
Claire Stevens, I'm from Forest and Bird on the North Shore. And just firstly to say that the documents are up on our website, so we're encouraging everybody to participate in the conversation around the two plans. And I absolutely endorse all of the things that you've said. My question is around the advocacy to get change to the protected trees legislation. So at the moment we've got a situation where the previous government cut out any protection for trees that are already growing. So it's lovely to have the 1 million trees, and we're making use of that. But we actually want to keep the trees that are already there and are doing the job that they should be doing. So are you advocating to government to put that protected trees legislation back in place?
The answer to that is yes, and our research group has been looking at the ineffectual protection we have now. And of course, the council has its hands tied, as do all councils around New Zealand, by the changes to the RMA made by central government. So a lot of course, people are blaming councils for this, but the councils are scrambling to fix it. The latest I have heard, and I have been approached by people in the Labour Party, are putting together a bill as we speak to return urban tree protection. So I'm looking forward to helping where I can with that, but I think it's looking positive that it's being prepared, as I understand.
Thank you. Yes, thanks.
Good evening, my name's Michelle Whitaker, and I wanted to do a little tiny plug because one of the other plans that's out for consultation at the moment is the waste management and minimisation plan for council, and we had some really good discussion there about plastics. And if people in the room care about the subject, one of the questions in the submission form and one of the things in the waste plan is that about product stewardship. And now's a really good time to talk about circular economy and product stewardship, and we've had a change of government, and it's a really good time to put forward your thoughts on that subject. And question 5 in the submission form talks about product stewardship, do people support it, and also about container deposit legislation. And as a ratepayer of Auckland, I just can't wait for just one tipping point of one system to change, which would show the whole everybody that we don't have to have that linear economy. And all the councils in the country are advocating to government at the moment. So after hearing about the plastics and the turtle that were 100% pure New Zealand branded, yeah, I would really encourage people to have a say on the waste plan.
Fine, thank you.
Rod, I just wanted to jump in with
yes, please do.
my own example there about the plastic, because that horrified me, made me cry a little bit. But there's a lovely lady in the audience who told me that she loved the Royal Cam, the albatross camera that the Department of Conservation put up a couple of years ago. We found, though, that with the albatross out at Tairoa Head in Dunedin, sure enough, the parents are coming back from out at sea where they go for a couple of days to collect up the fish to feed their chicks, and they're feeding their chicks pure plastic. And so the chicks' bellies fill up with plastic, they starve, they die. So it is a problem affecting a wide range of species, and it feels like it's not that hard to kind of, we could stop doing a lot of that stuff now.
Thank you. Gentleman there, thanks.
We have the America's Cup coming here in a few years. We've learned that the Hauraki Gulf is in real trouble. The question to the panel is, what could council and associated organisations do to use the America's Cup to focus and, if possible, contribute to helping the Gulf? And a classic example of this is the way in which the Volvo has focused on plastic. It got more publicity than actual competitors. Here we have a golden opportunity. What do the panel think?
A little bit. Thank you for that. I couldn't agree more. In fact, I'd love to see the ability for us to leverage in that space, to use the whole event to raise awareness. We certainly know how many people around the world watch what's going on with the America's Cup. We love it. It's within us ourselves. So if there's any opportunity to make sure that the council and everyone else can do something in that space, certainly you have our support for doing so. But I think it would be good to know where the actual home base for the race is going to be first.
Yes.
It's a really good question. I think it's really about foresight and thinking about those opportunities that we can use that are catalysts for change. We're going to be on the world stage, right? Just like Rugby World Cup. And the way that we can show that we don't just care about this because we're better educated, but actually we prove it with our infrastructure. We prove it with every person that comes to watch or watches from afar can see that the way New Zealand and the way Auckland works is one that is circular, that has transport choice, that is fair for their people, that actually delivers those outcomes in a way that's tangible. And so I would say the America's Cup, once we decide the base, which I think is, from what I'm told, pretty soon, we can actually get working on what are those things we need to bring forward to invest in that showcase those things we need to do. I mean, wouldn't it be great if you could walk up Queen Street on a grassy lawn that only had light rail and a few people on bikes go by, and do that in a couple years. I mean, things like that can transform the city and show the world that we really mean business.
Wouldn't it be great that if all the people that came to see the America's Cup racing weren't using single-use plastic drink bottles, of which I spy a few. That narrative needs to start now. Now, not to Skype, I'm going to. Tomorrow morning, I'm taking the first man out to see a marine reserve, and I've been instructed to bring water in a reusable bottle for very obvious reasons. It's a part of our story. It's not that hard for each of us to start that story.
Thank you. We've got some questioners down here. Thank you.
The first mention that I think we've had of how to prevent stuff rather than how to cope with the consequences, and I was beginning to get a bit frustrated that I think we're all agreed on the end point we want to get to, which is what we've concentrated on. The question is how we get there. I'm a rather annoyed resident of Waiheke Island because we see the council as not really having our interests at heart, and we're talking about adding money to our rates so that we have to then trust the council that they do the right things. In my case, I've twice given substantial amounts to fighting to marinas, which the council have allowed and has gone to court. The second one, I'm looking at you, because the second one, which has just been to court, it threatens not only Maori land and local species and blue penguins, etc., as well as annoying residents, So here are decisions which are being made which are going to lead to consequences where you're going to say you want more money later. And same with plastics, most of Waiheke have got their own bags, and there's lots of ladies sew bags, etc., so that people don't use plastic bags. But it would just take one biscuit manufacturer to take out one tray or one butcher to stop, to counteract all of that effort that individual people make. So what is the council going to do to stop some of these happening, as well as, using our rates to mitigate the effects? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to give John time off on this one, because you're not here to answer all the questions.
Can you come and talk to me afterward at least, just because I can give you a good, honest answer?
But are there any other responses to that question
I
around
guess,
this?
perhaps not specifically around the marina, but in terms of things to do and be positive, I would have to say that I have read a lot of regional pest management strategies and plans over the years, and this one that the Auckland Council team have produced is a step change. It is technically brilliant and will be a great use of that. If we can get $60 to implement it fully, we can actually protect a lot of stuff and we can save stuff. And I think that it is evidence-based, it will make a change. They just need the resources to put this into action. So I would think that's a very positive thing. We just need to tell the narrative about what we can do. And the 47, the option B is not enough. We're only going to get 66% of our parks protected, and that's just going to mean we lose stuff, lose ecosystems.
If I may add to that as well, and I think certainly bringing reusable bags to the supermarket is one thing, but actually seeing now what we have just had in the last few months take place across some pretty big corporate industries with respect to take foodstuffs and New World supermarkets and what they're doing to eliminate the plastic bag, to actually encourage that change, and that's the first step within those big corporate sectors with driving that change. What comes next is exactly getting the biscuit manufacturers or the bread manufacturers to change their packaging, and it has to be led not only by the council within this, but actually by one, the consumer, but two, the corporates that are producing these products as well. We've got to encourage that positive change too.
Thank you.
And can I just say, keep going? We're not going to agree on everything. Of course, we're not doing everything right, but I think the fact that if you can get people on your side and organize, have your say, and have a voice, we're going to have to listen, and you might help us correct some mistakes we're making. So please keep going with that.
Can we please take last two questions? I'm spotting two ladies down. Three questions, because there's that gentleman there, and I'm seeing two ladies down here. So I'm sorry, I'm ignoring people out on the wings here. I apologise for that. Three last questions. Thank you.
Rod, I was the first one to clap you for your introduction, and I was impressed by everything you said, but primarily when you suggested that Auckland could become self-sufficient in food. Now that is not a pipe dream. And the Auckland Council did at one time, in 2012, have as its motto, imagine a city living on scraps. Amazing, or fantastic, or brilliant, or something like that. Now, things have changed, because now in the draft waste plan, they intend for the scraps to be trucked out of the city. Out of the city. So they've gone from saying they should be composted in the city to be composted out of the city. Now, I made a submission to the 2012 Waste Management Committee that was rationalising the waste plans for all of the 14 different councils. And I said exactly that to them, that was a great plan, a city living on scraps. And they agreed. And when they had adopted the plan, they asked me to come and tell them how to implement it, because I'm a composter. And I was told that there was a big truck brigade in the council who would oppose what I said. And we now have a draft plan where it seems the big truck brigade has prevailed.
Thank you for recapping this really important history.
Yes.
But
now,
can we just get
okay.
to
so
a
if we
question,
we
please?
have 120,000 tonnes of food waste that under the current plan is going to be trucked out of the city. That's curbside food waste. There's 160,000 tonnes of commercial food waste.
Look, I'm sorry to press you, but
Yes.
I promised three
So
people
so
in a
why-
very
why-
short of time, please.
Why are we planning to truck this food waste out of the city when you could turn it into 35,000 tonnes of compost every year, which would give you 10,000 tonnes of carbon and nutrient to go in the soil, and it would grow?
Thank you. Can I just stop you at that point? Because I think we're getting the message that there's a great resource here that's going to be
Yes,
lost.
yes.
Any response,
why aren't
please?
we using it?
Any response, please, from the panel?
And can
thank
I
you.
also
No,
ask
sorry.
Margaret this?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I need to be strict because I promised two more people. Thank you very much indeed. Some response to that, please.
I think just briefly, I think I agree with you that waste equals food, and we need to be as efficient and ingenious as possible at using what we waste. So we eliminate the concept of waste. I think there might be differing opinions on the trajectory of how to do that. So I think there is a vision there somewhere where we do live off scraps. I personally believe that's a thing. We love to use worms in our backyard. It works really well. However, I think there's a bit of a rocky path to get there, I should say. And maybe we could chat about it afterward, because I think we're still figuring out the right way to get to where we really ultimately need to land.
Thanks. The microphone here for this lady there, and then the lady over there. Thanks.
Thanks, Rod. My name's Lynn Dawson. I asked the question, and maybe I even asked the question of the audience. Who's been to the supermarket this week and had to use a single-use plastic bag?
I did. I took my own bag and then I had to take another one.
That's what I'm saying, Nicola. You know, why can't we ban these plastic bags now, 1st of May, no more? Why is there always this delay situation? I guess the economists might have an answer to that.
I'm a business journalist, not an economist. I'm not ducking the question. It is completely obvious that we should be doing it. I'm not going to even ask the panel to respond. We're with you all the way on that. We just need to keep pushing. Lady over there, thank you. Last question.
Briefly. Nicola, you mentioned about the diversity, that Auckland, more than 40% were born in overseas. I'm one of them. And then, of course, originally from Japan, our homeland has suffered lots of natural disasters as well as man-made environmental disaster. The public service could only deal with it, not private profit-seeking sectors. So, in my opinion, the more rate is better for the result. I just wanted to say that I agree that there is a gap, that the clean, green New Zealand image is not actually the reality. Because when we came, our tourists, new migrants say, from Japan, said, because of our lesson, there were more rigid regulations for the recycling and other regulations for the environment. But here, people are more relaxed, which is good. But also, we see New Zealanders that take for granted this beautiful nature, and we must action now. So I fully support of the council initiative, and then we should be all the soldier for the environment. This is not question, but the comment.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, just remind you about the multiple ways you can make submissions and really fire this up. At this point, I'm just going to offer my very brief thanks to John, to Margaret, to Nicola, and to Hayden, and a very big hand for them, please. And I'm just going to ask them to stay there.